Hey everybody, it's Corbin. Welcome to the channel. For those of you who are brand new, thank you for joining us at Free the Me TV. And welcome back to the channel for those of you who have been with us for a while. If you guys tuned in a couple nights ago, you saw that I released a video saying that I was going to be recording a brand new series entitled Odyssey of the Mind, and that the first few videos in that mini-series will be called Odyssey of the Christian Mind. So tonight, I am giving you the first installment of Odyssey of the Christian Mind, and it will be focusing on the creation narrative, which takes place in Genesis 1 and 2. Genesis is the first book of the Bible, and obviously 1 and 2 are chapters 1 and 2, so they're the first and second chapters of the very first book of the Bible. Before I begin, let me say this. I do apologize if I look away from the camera a few times. I have all of my information written out in front of me, and I want to read it just so that it can be accurate for you guys. Like I said in the introduction video, I tried to include and incorporate all of my sources within these videos, all of my information within these videos, so that you guys are getting the information just like I got the information, so that you can learn it for yourself. So before we begin, I have terminology that I need to give you guys that is pertinent to this video. It's important for all of the videos, but it is important for you guys to get this information at this point before all of the videos actually begin, so that you understand where I'm coming from, so you have some background knowledge of things. I will be adding some slides so that you guys can actually see see exactly what I'm reading to you, as far as the terminology is considered, or as far as the terminology goes. Forgive me for that. That may have been the wrong word. But bear with me, guys. It is not a whole lot of information for tonight's video. Like I said, it's only the first and second chapters of Genesis, and so it won't be too much. I kind of want to ease you guys into things so that you guys can kind of get a feel for what I'm going to be doing here. So, without further ado, let us get started with the very first installment of Odyssey of the Christian Mind, and we are going to be studying the creation narrative from Genesis 1 and 2, like I said. So the first bit of terminology that I want to give you all is the word homosexual. Now, the English word homosexual it's a compound word, and it comes from two words. It's the Greek word homo, which means the same, and the Latin term sexualis, or sexualis, which means sex. So obviously that is a definition that's pretty self-explanatory, but I wanted to give it to you guys anyway. Some important things to know about the word homosexual as it pertains to the Bible. The term homosexual is a modern term, and it was not used in language at all until about 100 years ago. There is no word, I'm going to say that again, there is no word in biblical Greek or biblical Hebrew that is equivalent to the English word homosexual. That is, for all intents and purposes, a brand new word as far as the Bible is concerned. And the very first version of the Bible to use this word was actually not seen in the Bible until 1946, and it was seen originally in the Revised Standard Version of the Bible. That was the very first version of the Bible to use the word homosexual. Again, that was the 1946 version of the Revised Standard Bible, or the 1946 Revised Standard Version of the Bible. Forgive me for saying that backwards. The second term that I want to give you, and again, I'm going to put these slides up. I realize that I'm going a little bit fast, but I'm going to put these slides up so you guys can see it as well. You can pause it and write it down, whatever you want to do. But the second term that I want to give you is the word sodomite. That is important because I believe that word comes up in the next installment, but it's important for this one as well. what is important to know about the word sodomite is that there is no actual word in biblical Greek or biblical Hebrew for the word sodomy. The word sodomite originally was derived because just as a person who's from Moab, or in biblical times, a person who was from the country or the land of Moab was called a Moabite, a sodomite was simply a person who was a native of the area or the region Sodom. They were just an inhabitant of Sodom. It's not a word that is actually present or that was actually present in biblical Greek or biblical Hebrew. One thing that is also very important to know and to remember is that any Bible that you might read that uses the word sodomy or sodomite are interpretations and not faithful translations. So I'll say it for you again. Any Bible that uses the words sodomy or sodomite are interpretations and not faithful translations. Hopefully you guys understand that. Hopefully you remember that. Write it down. It's important to remember as we go further in this study, in this video series. Another thing that I am going to do, I'm letting you know now, in every video, if I use someone's work, as for my research, if I cite their work, I am going to make sure that it is cited on a slide so that you guys can go ahead on your own. You can look it up for yourself. So in tonight's video, I am going to be reading a direct quote from a book called The Good Book, Reading the Bible with Mind and Heart by Peter J. Gomes. It's a really good book. I recommend reading it if you're curious about things, biblical things, different topics in the Bible. It's a very good read. The language is pretty self-explanatory. It's pretty easy. You'll see when I read the quote from it tonight. So why don't we go into this now that we've gotten all of our housekeeping items out of the way? Why don't we get into this video for tonight? So the creation narrative. I am almost 100% sure that people everywhere, and if you haven't heard this phrase, you're getting ready to hear it for the first time, but people everywhere who are against homosexuality and who are in the church, almost everyone, I've heard them say, the story is about Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. Okay. And again, if you've never heard that phrase before, congratulations, you've heard it for the first time today. Now, even though people like to refute that, the truth of the matter is the story is about Adam and Eve. So here comes my quote from The Good Book, written by Peter J. Gomes. He's writing this quote in reference to the creation narrative. This comes from pages 49 and 50 of his book. He says, "The authors of Genesis were intent upon answering the question, where do we come from? Then, as now, the only plausible answer is from the union of a man and a woman. The creation story in Genesis does not pretend to be a history of anthropology or of every social relationship. It does not mention friendship, for example, and yet we do not assume that friendship is condemned or abnormal. It does not mention the single state, and yet we know that singleness is not condemned, and that in certain religious circumstances, it is held in very high esteem." That's from pages 49 and 50 of his book. So basically, what he is saying, in other words, what he's saying is Adam and Eve is the only relationship crafted for this specific account that makes sense. So the creation narrative is exactly what it is called. It's a story about creation, and only a story about procreative creation, i.e. heterosexual relationship, would be appropriate for this particular kind of story. So let me break it down to you guys like you're 3 years old. Scientifically, Biologically, two men or two women cannot have a baby without the aid of one another in some way. Although science is getting close, it's not there yet. This story, the creation story, was simply the author's way of telling how, really not even the world, but telling how the children of Israel came to be, telling their creation story. So, unfortunately for some, and fortunately for others, it is not possible to tell the creation story of a group of people if two people who have the same genitalia are the two people who start the world, essentially. For the purposes of the children of Israel, this was their start of their world. And so it's not possible for two people of the same genitalia at this point, and especially not at that point, it's not possible for people who have the same genitalia to create an entire population, create an entire nation. It wasn't possible. So for the simple fact of illustrating creation, of illustrating how an entire nation came to be, the authors had to write the creation narrative in Genesis 1 and 2 using a heterosexual relationship. People don't like to hear it. People don't agree with it, but unfortunately for them, that's the truth of the matter. In light of this information, the information that the creation story was written to illustrate the creation of the nation of Israel, of the group of the people of Israel, in light of that information, that the only way to create this entire nation, this entire group of people, was out of a procreative relationship. And at that time, the only way they could have a procreative relationship was to have a man and a woman, because you had to have two people of with different genitalia, of different sexes, to create life at that point. That is why people use that and say it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve. However, in light of this information, if someone were to base their opinion of homosexuality, homosexual relationships, the general LGBT community, and if they were to base their ideas and their feelings and their stance on, oh, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, if they were to base it on that alone, if they were to think it was appropriate to base their views of, oh, it's Adam and Eve, not Adam and Steve, that's why homosexuality is wrong, because it was created with a man and a woman first. If they were to base their ideas, their thoughts, their feelings, their assumptions on that one story, that one epitaph, that one pericope alone, unfortunately for them, their stance would not only be based way out of context of what the story was written for, but it would also be on a weak argument, and they wouldn't really have a leg to stand on. So, hopefully you guys understood that. Hopefully I didn't go through it too fast. If I did, leave me some comments down in the comments section below, and I'll break it down for you guys. Message me on Facebook, message me, send me an email. My email will also be in the description below. But like I said, hopefully you guys understood that. Tonight was a shorter video because the creation narrative, it doesn't have much language to be broken down. It's more a thing of context and not so much of language. But as we get further on into this investigation, into this Odyssey of the mind, we will run into some language. We'll come in contact with some language as well as some context issues, and we'll work through the language and the context issues together. We're going to work through that together. We're going to work through the terminology, the original languages that they were written in. We're going to work through the context that the stories and the narratives were actually written in. We're going to work through who they were written to, why they were written, all those different things. So, like I said, I hope you guys enjoyed tonight. Tonight was the creation narrative. The next video is going to be the Sodom account. And that is also in Genesis. I'll give you guys where that is now so you can read it and be familiar with it for yourself, so when it comes time for us to go through it, you guys are familiar with it already. So the Sodom account is also in Genesis, but it is the 19th chapter and the 1st through the 9th verse. So it's a short account. It's 9 verses. It's not long at all, but we're going to go through that in our next video. So like I always say, if you like this video, give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Leave your comments down in the comment section below with any thoughts, comments, concerns, questions, whatever you got to say. Don't forget to email me, send me Facebook messages, however you want to reach out to me if you have questions, if you have things that you would like covered. Don't forget, after you subscribe, to hit the little bell next to the word subscribe so that you can be notified when new videos come out every time they come out. All right, guys, that's it for this video tonight. I hope you enjoyed watching it as much as I enjoyed making it.